had to be probably my most proud day in being in the city council. Today, in so many ways, represents why I wanted to run for office. As a former director of an art museum called the Museum of Contemporary African Diaspora and Arts, I understood from then the power that the arts have to change the lives of our young people. And when I got into office, I certainly wanted to make that vision come true through this particular initiative. The artist as a catalyst for change is a powerful opportunity for us to bring the arts right into our communities in order to create the change that so many of our young people deserve, and most importantly, that they need at this time. The arts have power, they have magic, they have transformative powers that we can't even describe, we can't quantify. Everybody here knows the power of what song, what music can do to transform their lives. And so today, I am so particularly proud that we have so many representatives from all branches of government working together with the arts community to change the lives of our young people. At this time, I want to begin with a moment of silence, because up to this date, December 6th, we have had 1,061 shootings in the city of New York. And we have to recognize that we have lost lives in our city, the greatest city in the world, the most diverse city in the world, the wealthiest city in the world, the city where people come from all over the world because they want to experience the diversity, where we have sprawling towers, massive development. We want to make sure that we recognize the loss of life that we have had over this year. Today we have Reverend Jones. Come forward, Reverend Jones. Reverend Jones is a powerful leader and advocate in this work through his own ministry, as well as with a partnership with Crown Heights SOS. I have been so proud of the work that Reverend Jones has done to bring the power of prayer, to bring the power of love throughout our community so that our young people in the Crown Heights catchment area can feel safe. Reverend Jones.
Thank you, Laurie. There is a sound that is being heard all across our city. It's being heard in families, being heard in laundromats, being heard in the Congress, being heard everywhere. And that sound is enough is enough. Another gunshot, another life lost. And all across this city, there have been lives lost. And one life more is one life too many. So for all of these thousands of people that have lost lives, for all of the grieving families that still at this particular hour are grieving right now, for those young boys and young girls who are now being raised without a father, for 40% of an entire generation of black youth, that sound is being heard. Enough is enough. So for all of the victims all across the city, not only the victims of gun violence, but also the victims of stabbings, and also the victims of those families who have lost their sons to prison because of gun violence. So I'm going to ask you to pause at this moment for a moment of silence as we recognize the victims all across this city. Thank you so very much.
Today would not have been possible if we didn't have the work and the support of so many individuals here today. The realization of this unique endeavor would not have been made possible without the support of Speaker Melissa Mark Viverito, Councilmember Jalissa Barreras-Copeland, Chair of the Committee on Finance, and the council members who heeded the call for more resources in communities deeply impacted by gun violence. But I want to, at this time, recognize an individual from the borough of Brooklyn who started this anti-gun violence movement. 2 years ago, Councilmember Jamani Williams was able to secure over $12 million to make sure that we brought an anti-gun violence initiative to the city of New York. This year, that number has grown to almost $20 million, and that is because of his leadership. He is a voice locally, he is a voice nationally, as well as internationally, to make sure that the conversation, but most importantly, the work of ending gun violence happens right here in New York City. He is on the ground, he is at the protests, he's at the rallies, but most importantly, he's inside here, the steps of City Hall, and in our buildings, making sure that we pass legislation and bring major reforms so that we can finally end this devastating impact on our communities. I'd like to welcome Councilmember Jumaane Williams.
Good morning. I appreciate the kind words. I'm pretty sure I'm not international yet.
Sure you are.
But I want to, this is exciting. First, I'm very proud that I was able to help steward this funding and the system that we now have in place, and the task force couldn't have been done without my colleagues, and especially could not have been done without all of the advocates behind us here today who were fighting for this. So thank you very much. I was the steward inside, and they were absolutely the people pushing us from the outside. I want to congratulate Laurie for the vision here. I just want to give her a round of applause for doing this. The fact of the matter is, I know that there were some people skeptical when they heard about our initiative, and I will guarantee you there are some people who are skeptical now. But make no mistake about it, arts are a huge part of young people's lives. Arts are a huge way to get young people to use the energy that they have in a more positive way. In fact, first of all, I'm proud to be here with Uncle Ralph also, representing hip-hop. But if you go back in history and you look at the place that hip-hop had in changing the views and the actions of young people in the 70s with gangs that moved that into music, that turned into hip-hop, we would know how much arts really have as an impact of young people. And also I thank my mother for having me in arts and having me in choruses and having me in drama as a way to prevent. Now I still got in some trouble, but I know the trouble would have been multiplied if I didn't have these other outlets. And so it's extremely important not to minimize this initiative, not to minimize how much arts can play in dealing with the violence in our community. We have two buckets that we have to put gun violence in. It's all a public health issue, but one is the supply. That is the gun control laws that we talk about, the guns that come into our community, the laws that we can prevent. Unfortunately, here in the city, we don't have as much power as we'd like over that. We need the state and particularly the federal government to move on that. But the second bucket is the demand and the penchant for violence. So even if there's 1,000 guns here, our young people don't have to pick it up. And that is where local governments and our city council have the power to infuse resources to make sure we change the demand for violence in our communities. We all know what the answer is. We all know what the resources need are. We all know they need education. We all know they need jobs. We've seen this violence before. The complexion of the violence was different. And when the complexion was different, the response was different. We infused those communities with the resources they needed. And it's about time that we do the same thing with this violence here. So I'm very, very proud of what Laurie Cumbo is doing here. I'm very excited that I can play a small role in pushing it forward. Do not downplay it. Do not make it seem like it's something simple. This is a revolutionary way of dealing with the gun violence. And trust me, where New York City goes, the rest of the country will go as well. So let's push forward. I want to again say thank you and a shout out to all the advocates. Special shout out to GMAC that does the work in my district in particular. Thank you so much. Congratulations.